All right, chapter 11 on the doorstep. So they've left Lake Town. They've made their way to closer to the mountain. They've experienced the desolation of Smog, this kind of blighted area around the mountain, which we'll talk about in just a second. Um, they see the prophecy that was held on Thorn's map come true. See birds and stuff that I want to talk about. So the desolation of Smog. Um, The land about them grew bleak and barren, though once, as Thorn told them, it had been green and fair. There was little grass, and before long there was neither bush nor tree, and only broken and blackened stumps to speak of ones long vanished. They were come to the desolation of the dragon, and they were come at the waning of the year. So, if my guess that I talked about in the one of the previous chapters is right, that Smog hasn't really left the mountain for about 6 years. Um, which I could be wrong about, but it's been an awful long time. It's weird that there are no new trees growing. You know, obviously he's blasted the landscape, burned everything up. There's little grass, but it's odd to me that there are no trees growing. There used to be a very fertile place. Obviously, there were trees because they're blackened stumps now. So why is nothing growing? Why is it still so desolate? I think there could be a couple reasons. A scientific reason, maybe his fire was just so hot that it made it just uninhabitable. Um, maybe there's a scientific explanation for that. But I think there could be a little bit more of a mystical reason as well. And you could see a parallel between this and a more medieval idea that if a wrongful king is in place, then the land suffers. This connection between the king and the land. If you read Shakespeare's play Macbeth, I won't spoil it too much, but Macbeth becomes the king of Scotland in a way that wasn't right, and the land suffers. There's these crazy storms, and crops are not growing correctly. Um, so Smog has taken over. He is calling himself the king under the mountain, but he's not the rightful king, right? And that mystical connection between the king and the land, I think, is in play here, which is why nothing is growing. So I think Tolkien was also pulling on some of those medieval traditions there. It also just makes for a place that is just not fun to be. Not only are you closer to a dragon than maybe you should be comfortable with, but you're also in a place where nothing is pleasant to be. There's no shade, although it's getting colder now. We're coming to the end of fall. Just not a pretty place to be. So along with that, there's obviously not a lot of wildlife. They see two types of birds. They see crows, and then up on the mountain on the doorstep, they see a single thrush. So what's up with that? What's the symbolism behind these birds? Crows, obviously, they're carrion eaters. They eat they're scavengers. They eat dead flesh. They are often equated with death, destruction, all these things. So it makes sense that there'd be crows here in the desolation of Smog. We see them kind of around the city of Dale. So you might wonder what they're eating in the city of Dale, what's been destroyed for so long. And then we have this thrush. It's kind of more of a symbol of hope, of rebirth, renewal, and it's fulfilling the prophecy to open up the door to help them get inside the mountain. So I don't think it was on accident that Tolkien chose these two birds to be the only things alive in the desolation, or that we see that are alive in the desolation. I think that was very intentional. In literature, pay attention to birds. Pay attention to what birds the authors are bringing in, because they can really add onto the mood or the tone of the story. Speaking of mood, I want to think about seasons, how they've been changing. So we started off, it was about May time, springtime, as they were leaving Bilbo's Hobbit hole. And that's just always just a time of renewal, rebirth, hope, and all those good things. They were fairly happy. got more into summer in Mirkwood, in the wild. Summer to me is like a hot, dangerous time, potentially, which I think really lent itself to how they were feeling in Mirkwood. They were thirsty because they ran out of water. They spent a good amount of time in the Elven King's dungeon, kind of going into fall. Things are, slowing down, biologically speaking, in the natural world. Trees are losing their leaves, going to sleep. And now we come to the end of autumn, beginning of winter, cold, bleak. Not usually not as happy of a time, depending on how you feel about the seasons. And I think Tolkien was, again, very intentional in how he framed this story, having us start in the spring, and so we're almost to the close of the story here in winter. And I think that really affects the mood, that affects the tone, and how the reader might feel. So we'll finally meet the dragon in the next chapter. It's very exciting. A lot of things going on, and we'll pick it up there.